Welcome to today's Shelter in Studio event hosted by San Francisco Center for the Book. My name is Chad Johnson, and I'm the studio director and resident instructor here at the center. Back when the shelter in place order first came around, we decided to actively stay connected with our community, and this series grew out of that decision. Every week at this time, we log on and visit with friends and colleagues to see what folks are doing, say hello, and hopefully get a little inspiration. This week, we are visiting John Sullivan and his Logos Graphics studio in San Francisco. John Sullivan has navigated Logos Graphics for over 40 years. After decades of offset litho printing, Logos transitioned into letterpress. Logos has provided polymer plates and letterpress printing since the year 2000. Over the last 10 years, John has explored papermaking and has attended workshops in Cleveland and New York to improve his skills. Why paper? Perhaps it had something to do with the growth of digital papers on the market, 8 kinds of white and smooth. After decades of printing since March, John has decided to dive headlong into the fascinating world of papermaking and designing papermaking tools. So with that, welcome, John, and I'm going to switch cameras to you and you can take it away.
Welcome to Logos Graphics. My shop is housed in Project Artaud, an arts community located in San Francisco. Our Project Artaud will be celebrating its 50th year anniversary in 2021. I'm going to show you some of the papermaking projects I've been working on since March and the COVID closure. The first ones I'm going to talk about are pulp spraying with stencils. I had selected an image for this workshop and then went back through my archives and found out that I'm a repeat offender. I've used this kind of aerial perspective image multiple times. This is one of the earliest pieces I did. This is about 5 years ago. And this is using a technique called pulp spraying, where the pulp is loaded into this hopper gun, which is connected to an air compressor. Fabric is stretched onto a simple frame and then sprayed down onto the frame. A base sheet is put down, that is pulp sprayed all over the whole area, and then we start adding a series of stencils like this, So after the base sheet, then I would go to the pale blue, spray pale blue. Then we're going to come to this, and so on. And basically we have a repeatable matrix. So the form is going to be the same. The colors can be changed. They can be darkened, lightened, or gone completely different. We can go to some other planet where blue isn't the dominant color of these aerial perspectives. Like this one. The difference between this piece and this piece is this also uses stencils, but this is they're just placed like a collage on here, not in a set order. And again, the pulp spraying, base sheet, and then the pigment coming in. So this, I would have sprayed the base sheet, put this coroplast crane and circled down, and then come in and sprayed this blue, then lifted those plastic stencils off and had this effect. This is a slightly different technique. This is where a base sheet is formed, and then I use simple vinyl stencils to come in and couch different color fibers with different molds from different vats to build the image. This also then had an overspray of a darker pigment to kind of unify and blend the pieces. Same and same. And these are actually the same stencils on all these, but just different color variations and themes. This piece is actually what I consider to be my first pulp print. And this was done a couple of years ago. This has a base sheet of flax. And this, I put this stencil matrix in the same place on each sheet, and then was later going to come in with a metallic gold screen print text, but haven't done that yet, probably won't. But pulp print. So let's go into the studio and look and see at what we've got going today. The molds and decals that I'm using to create these papers that we're looking at today are based on the work of Brian Queen and Don Farnsworth. We have a 3D printed surface and then a mold to support it, frame to support it, and a decal which keeps the slurry from flowing off the top of the mold. This is the third generation surface. This is the first generation of this, and you can see how much finer the laid lines are on the new generation. So it's just as each time I build one of these, I learn, I listen to and see the results of what I'm doing, and then I'm able to come back and modify it to get it to do what I believe is to perform better. This is an A3 size mold. This is an 8.5, 11 mold. The image that we're going to be working on today is based on this artwork, where we've got a water foreground, near, mid, far, and sky. So this was originally built in Photoshop, then taken into Illustrator, and carved on the CNC to create an additional decal for this mold. So first we're going to form a base sheet with this decal. Then we're going to charge this pour decal with different colored pulps and couch it on to the top of it. So let's go form our base sheet. In the vat, we have a mix of cotton and abaca, 70% cotton linters, 30% abaca. This was a simultaneous beat, both fibers put in at the same time and beaten for about an hour and 20 minutes. This also has a little bit of kozo in it, which is an Eastern fiber, and adds a little bit of interest and effect. You'll be able to see the kozo element. We're going to drain, decal off. And then we drain till we drip. We want to see that stream of water turn into a dripping. Then we know that we've got enough of the moisture out that this is going to stay on the mold. I'm going to dip in water to get the extraneous fiber off the edges. This helps me keep my felts cleaner. I have a simple registration system here where we're going to come line this edge up, pull this back against here, and then just do our couch and roll. Okay, so now this is our base sheet. You can see the kozo fibers, and then this is the mix of the abaca cotton, and you can see the laid lines from the molds. This is the traditional style mold prior to 1800. So we're now going to come over and fill our pour mold, P-O-U-R, with fiber. So this is a very paint by numbers kind of scheme where we're just going to get the fiber into each band of the pour mold. So this is a uniform matrix. So basically, if we want to keep these colors the same, we can, or if we want to do what's called an addition verite, where each one is a little bit different, playing with different colors and amounts of foam or of pulp, we can do that too. When I first started with this, I was a little bit disappointed that these lines showed up so dominantly between the colors. And then I had my Julia Childs moment where I remember her talking about the difference between filling a manicotti and stuffing a manicotti. So if we stuff these with a little bit more pulp, then there's going to be enough squeeze out that we're going to bridge those gaps between our colors. We're going to take our stir stick and get our fiber up into this difficult area. It took me about a half a dozen of these things to realize that my stir stick has two ends. It has a blunt end and a sharp end for helping get fiber into those more difficult areas. Here's our sky. This sky is a color that I built when the glass fire was going up in Napa. And I should have one more color here. And so you can see that we're building that aerial perspective with our darker mid-tone, lightest. Okay. All right. So now we've got our pour decal charged with our foam. We're going to lift come over to the drain. And now we're going to pull it off. There's a couple problematic areas on this one where we're just going to encourage the fiber to release from the decal by adding a little water stream. Okay. And so there we have it. It's kind of nice like that. So now this is our sky, and I always press with the sky against the registration stick. I'm going to bring that back, get our register, and then just cooch normally. Get a nice press on this thing and off. And there we have our pulp print. To print, to produce by a mechanical process involving the transfer of text, images, or design to paper. Pulp print, not with ink, but with paper. So I'm going to come over and talk a little bit about the other part of the process that we're making of how we make the molds and decals. And just to confuse you, I'm now going to talk about a different kind of mold. This is a mold that we carve into soft foam and then can place a freshly formed sheet into, like this, put it in a vacuum frame, pull moisture out with blotters, and then this just goes into restraint drying, and we've got a sheet with a built-in emboss in it. This is a piece that, these are different states for a piece that I worked on for SF MoMA. This is the wall of the Museum of Modern Art as you're driving up Howard. This was a thank you book for a retiring employee down there. We went through 5 states, 5 different ways of integrating text and this graphic until we came up with a version that they liked. This is a piece that I worked on with Julie Chin and Flying Fish Press. This is true 3D where we have gradients and slopes, and we went through 8 states of this where we were working on the depth of the cut and also on the beat of the fiber. Julie wanted a lower shrinkage, smoother feeling fiber. And so those 2 things led us through this whole path till we ended up with a piece that she was satisfied with. The CNC, where you had additive over there, this is subtractive, where I put this piece of foam onto the bed, and then I use either a blunt nose in mill to create the shapes. This piece was carved all with the squared off end mill, and could be a paint by numbers thing, just like we did with our pour decal, where I could come in with a color fiber here, a different color fiber here, use these boundaries to determine what color fiber I put each place. But I was afraid that the different colors of fiber were going to influence the words, and I wanted the words to be the important element on this piece. So here is this piece cast. Yesterday, I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today, I am wise, so I am changing myself. Rumi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. That was amazing. I'm going to let him get back over to his computer where we can ask him some questions. If people have any questions they want to put into the chat room there, I'll be able to ask him those as he gets settled. All right, let me get the camera view over to John and we can take some questions. All right, so I'm scrolling back a little up earlier here, John, and it says, Michelle had one of the earlier questions where she said, for us paper makers, who made adhesive watermarks and how well do they peel off the 3D printed material?
The adhesive, I can actually go get one. So adhesive watermarks, we use it's a sandblasting material. It's an extremely smart material where the adhesive always goes with the watermark material. It never sticks to the mold surface. And the material that we use is about 45 thousandths thick, 0.45. It's about the same thickness as the 300 GSM Letra, if you're familiar with that sheet. And the stuff I have is also translucent. So if you output a laser, you can lay this down on top of it on a light box and use it as a guide for cutting your watermarks. And I have that for sale if you're interested.
Excellent. One question here, I'm a little out of order, but that's all right, because so I think they're referring to the printed sheet that you cooched while we watched. It says, what is the next step in that process?
So the next step would be to build a post where basically that's a 22 by 30 felt. And I put 2 of those sheets down left and right, left and right. And then we build about 6 felts, put another press board, 6 felts, another press board. We get up to about 40 sheets, and then it goes into the hydraulic press. The water's squeezed out, and then goes into this thing behind me here. This is a dry box, which is cotton blotters with 3-ply corrugated cardboard. And you can see the fan outlet down at the bottom. It pulls air through, and it fully dries the paper in about 12 hours.
Someone asked, what is the formula for colored pulps?
Well, so we use either Carriage House or Twin Rocker aqueous pigments. It takes very little. They're remarkably efficient, but they do require an additional ingredient called retention aid, where it changes the charge of the electrons and causes the aqueous pigment to electronically or to bond to the cellulose fiber. So it's the pigments are much more color fast than dyes. Dyes can also be used to color pigments or color the paper pulp, but we use these aqueous based pigments. And like I say, they're extreme. If you're starting out, buy the little containers. They last a long time. I also use ground mica in some of the pieces that we do. And also candle makers use mother of pearl, ground mother of pearl, to add a irid luminance to, we use that to color some of our washi. So there's a variety of things.
Excellent. One basic question followed by a question that came in multiple times, just trying to get everything in here before the bell. A quick reminder of what kozu is, and then also some people asked if the paper for the casting was the same as the base sheet.
The paper for the base sheet and the casting on this particular project is the same. The pieces out in the hall had a base sheet of flax, and then cotton was the pigmented element applied to it. Kozo is the inner bark of the paper mulberry plant, and is one of the 3 primary fibers used in washi and Japanese paper making. And it's a extremely long fiber. In that sheet that I cooched, you could see those little dark fibers that were an inch and a quarter long. And I did do one thing on that kozo, was I pigmented it, and then I added a little bit extra retention aid, which caused it to flocculate, which was for the fibers to bond back together, so that they made little clumps and were more noticeable than if I hadn't done that. Then it would have been a much more subtle effect.
All right. Well, thank you so much, John. I think that's all the time. We have run out of time. So I'm going to say thank you to everyone else for coming. I hope you enjoyed this amazing presentation by John, and we wish you all the best with this next incarnation of Logos. And we look forward to seeing all these sheets dried out and pinned up on the wall soon as we come through the hallways. So happy and grateful for you to show us this work today. Thank you all for coming, and be sure to come and get back again next week for Shelter in Studio. We look forward to seeing you all then. All right. Have a great day, everyone.